A good friend of mine wanted a farmhouse style table for her apartment, so I bought some 2x12 pine boards and cut them down to length. I didn't have a jointer at the time, so I used an electric planer to try to get the sides as flat as I could so that when I joined the boards together they would sit flush. The problem was that if the edge was at an angle, it still wouldn't sit flush, so I decided to then run the boards through the table saw to get a clean edge and clean up what was left of the bow in the wood with my planer. That worked fairly well, and I just used pipe clamps and biscuits to join them together and suck the two boards for a flush seam. I tried quite a few clamping techniques. I tried laying two boards flat on each side to try to keep the two boards level with each other, and it worked pretty well either way I tried it. And here's the two halves completely glued up. Now it's time to put the ends on the tabletop. I trimmed both ends flush with the straight edge and then cut a 2x6 down and used biscuits and glue and pipe clamps to attach it to each end of the tabletop. I had to throw a few screws in the end pieces just to hold them. I probably should have used pocket holes from the beginning, but that's alright. I then took my planer and planed down what would be the legs. They were rough sawn timber, and I just tried to clean them up so that sanding would be easy. I just used my pocket hole jig to attach the base of the table together, screwing it into the end of each leg and leaving the screws out of the top where it connects to the tabletop so that I can transport the top and the base separately and assemble it inside the house. I put a bottom support on with a cross brace running through the middle, And then I decided that I needed some 45s on the corners just to support this table a little bit more. And so I just threw those in with some screws and glue. Then it was time for sanding. I really wish that my belt sander had a bag on it because I got about an inch thick of dust in my whole garage. I went back and forth between the palm sander and the belt sander to get a clean, smooth finish. Now I did plane this down before, as you saw in an earlier clip, but I had to get out some of the grooves that the planer left. Next time I'll get a dedicated thickness planer and use that. Then I just cleaned it off and put the first coat of dark walnut Danish oil on the top. Turned out pretty nice. Between sanding with 220 grit and applying more coats of stain and polyurethane, I started working on the bench. The bench is basically made up the same way as the tabletop, except this time I used some pocket hole screws to join the two halves together, along with the glue and biscuits. Putting the ends on the bench, you can use two pipe clamps and just hook their shoes to each other. You probably saw me do this in the tabletop glue up as well. It's a great little trick. Just make sure everything's lined up so that whenever you put tension on the pipe clamps, they don't pop loose. Sanded the bench top the same as the tabletop, all the way up to 220 grit. I then took my router and rounded over all the edges and continued my last coat and sanding on the polyurethane for the tabletop. Once we got the tabletop and base in the house without having to take it apart, I glued in my dowels to close up the pocket hole holes, and then just put some Danish oil finish on them to make them match. And that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate you watching this build. You can check me out on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and please subscribe to my channel and share this video. Also, throw me a thumbs up. It helps me get in front of a larger audience. Thanks, guys.